and now, we are surrounded and immersed in an infinite good. How much of this infinite good is ours? In all capital letters, all of it. And how much of it may we have to use? As much of it as we can embody. And that's what we want to talk about today. What can we embody? Because there is every form of wealth available to us to the fullest extent that we can allow it into our experience. There's love, there's health, there's financial freedom, there's creativity, there's just anything you can think of that you would like to have in your life. Freedom, whatever it is, it's out there. But frequently only a trickle comes through. And the reason for that is not that God is keeping this away from us. It's always there. It's like the ocean is always there. It's our consciousness that is that which brings things into our experience. And if our consciousness is filled with rules and beliefs and lack and limitation, if it's filled with self-loathing or devaluing ourselves or others, then we choke that flow of good. And as Nils said, we have our foot on the hose. And so what we want to talk about today is let's get our foot off the hose and allow that natural abundance flow come into our lives. So another thing that Ernest Holmes says on page 233 is hold steadfastly to the thought that all of life is in a state of eternal flow. All of life is in a state of eternal flow. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So for those of you who are willing to close your eyes for a moment, I would just like to take you into a space. Carolyn created this beautiful space of consciousness for us. And just if you close your eyes, you cut off visual stimulation. If you don't, you can just follow this as you will. But imagine yourself in a desert. And you are parched. You are so thirsty. You just really, you're hot, you're thirsty, you want to drink, you want to be wet. You want to cool off. And in front of you, as you're walking along, you suddenly see this huge container. There's a tap on it, a spigot, but it goes as far as you can see in every direction in front of you. And as you turn around, there is a huge field of containers of every size and shape that you can imagine. And what I would like for you to do right now is to go over and pick one of those containers and take it to that spigot and fill it with water. Fill it with the water of life. And after you've filled it, drink of that refreshing, renewing, restorative water. And know that when you drink that, you can take that back and as many times as you want. And now as you open your eyes, ask yourself, what size was the bucket? What size was the container? Why did I pick that size? Did I pick a small one? Did I pick one that in the physical world would have been impossible for me to even hold? Ask yourself, why that size? Because what you experience is that the universe is always saying yes. It does not ever say no. And that any restriction, apparent restriction that there is by the size of the container that we take to that spigot is all in our own consciousness. Because it is our consciousness that governs the amount of flow that we have of this life-giving restorative water. And you're welcome. You're free to open your eyes now if you would like. So what's in our consciousness? We have beliefs and rules about what does God really want. What does God really want? Am I doing what God wants me to do? We have some beliefs about money, and it can go everywhere from money doesn't grow on trees to ask yourself, do I believe that money is as sacred and as spiritual as everything else? Do I believe that? We have beliefs about our own self-value and self-worth. Do I deserve more? Do I deserve more happiness? Do I deserve more love? Do I deserve a free-flowing relationship with others? Do I deserve to have prosperity and abundance in my life? Do I have beliefs in my consciousness that I shouldn't live well because others don't? That somehow I'm taking away from others if I allow this goodness into my life. Wayne Dyer talks about it in I can't remember which book, but one of his books. He goes, you can't be, you're sick, your being sick will not keep someone else from being sick. Your being poor will not keep someone else from being poor. Your fill in the blank does not keep someone else. Do I believe that if I get too big for my britches, that God will take it all away from me and it will never come back? Do I believe that there is an ebb and a flow, and the tides, just like the tides that comes in and it goes out, and it comes in? Do I believe that when I'm in an ebb, that it won't come back? There's an author called Seth Godin who wrote a book called Tribes. He's written many books, one called Tribes, and then he says, just because the tide is out doesn't mean there's less water in the ocean. Do I believe that I cannot prosper in bad times? Do I believe that because of what's going on around me, that there's just no way? We have to look at, what are we telling ourselves? There's a great story about those of you who are old enough who know about Bruce Lee, the martial arts master. There was a point in time in his career when in his life when he was pretty famous. He was had a lot of extensive fighting in the martial arts, and he was starting to make a name for himself. But there was a particular master that he wanted to study under. So he went to that master. And he approached that master, and he did all the customary rituals and things to ask that master to become his teacher. And after he did that, he started to talk, and he talked about his experience, and he went on and on about all the fights he had won and all of his accomplishments. And the master was listening patiently. And while he was doing that, he made some tea, and he handed the cup to Bruce Lee, and he started pouring the tea into his cup as Bruce continued to talk. And the teacup filled up, and it filled up the saucer, and it flowed over his hand, and he goes, "Stop. This cup is full. You can't put anything more in it. Stop. You're getting tea all over the place." And the master said, "That's my point. Your cup is full. And until you empty it, I cannot teach you." So I ask you to empty out all of these beliefs that we have. Empty them out. Let them go. Acknowledge them. Thank them for all that they've done for you up to this point. But we need to clear them out, because it is our consciousness that is the creative element in our lives. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the law of attraction. And those of you who've had me in classes, I know we've talked about the law of attraction, but I have stopped using that term because it's lost its meaning, because there's a lot of people now who feel that all I have to do is think about it, and I will attract it into my experience, whatever it is. Yes and no. I prefer to call it the law of radiation. What we're going to attract into our experience is what we radiate out. And if you go to Ernest Holmes and Charles Fillmore and Raymond Charles Barker and Abraham and Mary Morrissey and so many other, anyone who talks about this in more detail than we get in the book, The Secret, we need to raise our vibration up to what it is we desire. And to do that, we need to let go of what it is that is keeping us from radiating more of our light out into the world. Now, Raymond Charles Barker, some of you may not know who he is. He was actually, he's a contemporary of Ernest Holmes. He and Ernest Holmes both were, he was one of the people who helped Ernest Holmes start this whole, what we now call Centers for Spiritual Living. And in his book, Power of Decision, he defines prosperity, and I love this definition of prosperity. It's the ability to do what you want to do at the instant you want to do it. The ability to do what you want to do at the instant you want to do it. And to get to that point, I need to get in touch with my infinite self. I need to understand my infinite self. I need to understand what is restricting this flow, because our nature is divine. And our purpose for being in this walk of life that we're in is to enact the divine nature, to bring the divine nature, to allow it to come into form. You, each and every one of us, if you're hearing my voice, you are, we say you're an expression of the divine, but what you are is you are a form. Think of yourself as like a mold, and the light of God is just filling that. And you are that individualized expression of the divine. So we are here to enact the divine nature in the human form. So a lot of times I hear, well, I don't know, I need to know what the will of God is. Well, Ernest Holmes says in this thing called You, I think he defines it quite well. The will of God for you is the will of a boundless life flowing through you. It is the will of joy, of success, of happiness, of peace, of abundance. It is the will of the kingdom of heaven, not absent from this earth, but imperfectly seen, because we see it through our human eyes. And so if we know that the flow is there, if we understand that the flow is there, no matter what the effect looks like, we can go back to this boundless life flowing through me as me. So our consciousness is the receptive, the creative element of our lives. And along with radiating out, we need to be receptive to receive. And that too is a clearing of these beliefs that I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. If I have my goods, someone else will suffer. I'm a spiritual person. Spiritual people are poor. That was one of my beliefs that I got to work on. And if I have great abundance, if I have prosperity, if I can do what I want to do in the instant I want to do it, then I'm going to become like one of them, like one of them rich people. Well, no, what I need to do is to go and explore that. So if our consciousness is our creative element, it is our heart's desires that guide us, that guide that creative element of us. So we have these desires, and it's more than just, like my 3-year-old who wants a lollipop and wants it now, my 3-year-old grandson. It's it's more than that. It's the desire that comes from the heart, the true desire of what it is we are here to express. And what we do is we learn to shut that down. We learn it as children, and it continues on as adults. And there's reasons why we shut them down, especially once we become old enough to understand and cognitive enough to understand these desires. One is we have no idea how to bring it about. And the other one is that we believe that desire is bad or wrong. And there's a Zen Buddhist teaching story of how when monks come into the Zen monastery as a student, they are told to become enlightened. And to do that, they must eliminate desire from their life. So they'll spend 5 or 10 years working on releasing all desires, and they come back to the teacher and announce, hey, I have succeeded. I no longer have any desires in my life. I am enlightened. And the teacher laughs and says, why did you do that? Well, you asked me to. I want to be enlightened. And suddenly the student realizes that they too have a desire, and that desire is to be enlightened. So they go off to release this desire to be enlightened. And as you work through this, they realize that they are working in the field of desire, and that they awaken to that it is desire that motivates the energy of the universe. It moves everything forward. And eventually they learn to release their desire, to release their desires. And go to what is that true desire of my heart. And a concept to keep in mind is that the universe will not express a desire through us, through any one of us, without providing a means to accomplish it. And the piece that we often get tangled up in is the how. And the how is not our job. My job is to be clear on what it is. What is it that I desire? And to stand in that vision in faith. And we can define that. What is it that I desire? What is it that I desire as far as my health and well-being, the relationships that I have, the creative expression of myself into humanity? How am I of service to humanity? How do I express myself? And then time and money freedom. Those are the ways we can define that desire. And once we have that clear desire, clear of what is what, and we can stand in that vision with faith, and we can work with those thoughts that come up to tell us anything contrary to it, then the universe provides the means, will always provide the means. Another contemporary of Ernest Holmes, Charles Fillmore, who he and his wife Myrtle started the Unity Church, refers to this as an energizing polarity, and he refers to it as wisdom and love. That we have the wisdom of the vision and of the clear thinking, and it's unencumbered by dysfunctional beliefs, anything that limits and constricts it. And we have the power of love, which is our desire for that idea of what wants to express through us as us. And as we can expand that wisdom and let go of the dysfunctional beliefs that we have, and expand our understanding of this desire that we have, then we expand our experience, and things come into our experience. 30 years ago or so, I was on the island of Maui, and I said, someday I'm coming back. And that someday started the day after Labor Day this year. It took a while because I had a lot of misbeliefs. I had a lot of beliefs that I couldn't do it. By that time, soon after that, I became a single mom of 3 teenage boys. I was working. How could I get the time off? I didn't have anybody to go with, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as I let go of all of that, the opportunity to go to Maui for 10 days, most of it paid, that I did not have to come out of my own physical, finances, was done. It was done. It happened. Everything happened. The universe, once I allowed the universe to say yes, everything moved out of the way. And I had a wonderful time for 10 days in the Hawaiian Islands. It was really nice. So what do we need to do here? What we need to do is to clear our consciousness of the congestion and restrictions that limit the divine flow. And how do we do that? That's a really nice statement, Jackie, but what do I do? And what I do is I pay attention to what it is that I say. I pay attention to those words that come into my mind. I pay attention to, and I let go of those thoughts. Like when something comes into my mind that is restricting me from the desire that I have, that somehow constricts that flow, I acknowledge it. And one of the things that I love to say is, that's very interesting. But the truth I know is, and I state what the truth is, what the big T truth is. That's a way to do it. That's a way to pivot it. That's a way to change the perspective that I have of that. Because remember that the abundant brilliance of the infinite one is always shining, just like on a cloudy day. I love cloudy, rainy days with my 3-year-old grandson, because we sit there and we talk. We could talk for an hour about how the sun is still out, even though he can't see it. So no matter how cloudy it gets, no matter what it looks like, abundant flow is there. And it's always expressing, and it is always on. So things that we can do is we can do meditation with visualization. Visualize yourself in what it is that you desire. Get as much, and don't get locked onto the detail. Bring as much detail in as you can to get that feeling of, what does it feel like to be there? What does it feel like? Because it is that feeling that helps drive away all of these negative thoughts. It is the feeling that we get that raises our vibration, so we radiate out at that vibration level, and then we attract into our experience that which we desire. Doing prayer and having a prayer partner helps also. Working with a practitioner, you all here at the Connecticut, you are so fortunate. You have top-notch practitioners that you can lean on, that you can go to, that can work with you. And yeah, I'm a little biased there because I consider them all some of my babies, but they're all good. They're really, really good at helping you understand what the misbeliefs that are blocking the flow for you. And I will say this again. I think I say this every time I talk here. I go to a practitioner at least once a month, whether I need it or not, whether I think I need it or not. And I get a tune-up. Once a month, minimum. Sometimes maybe 2 or 3 times a month. It depends on how the month's going. Another way to do it is to get involved in a class. You have an incredible class starting on Monday night. It's the foundations class. And it brings you into the 10 core concepts that we have in this teaching that will give you some guideposts. It's a way to start shifting your thinking, pivoting your thinking. And whether you've taken it before or not, if you haven't taken it, it's a great class to get started. If you have taken it, it's a great class to bring you back to the basics. So my challenge for you this week is to pivot, is to change your perspective, is to say, that's very interesting, but the truth I know is, Get that clarity of what it is your desire is. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. Do like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, let us take our bloated nothingness out of the path of the divine circuits, not circus, circuits, and let us unlearn our wisdom of the world. And that wisdom is a small w. And let's replace it with the big W wisdom of the divine. And so I leave you with this excerpt from a poem from Hafiz, which I love. And it is truly my desire. I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. Namaste.